Hey guys, welcome to the third and final part of my DeadMau5 head tutorial. You're on the home stretch now, so please don't give up because you're this close to getting your DeadMau5 head finished. In this video I'm going to show you how to do the final assembly and attachment of all the pieces that you made in the last two videos. So stick with me and enjoy. Okay, so now that we've done the LEDs for the eyes, what we actually need to do is cut out holes so the LEDs can actually go through the shell. These are the eye pieces that I've made, but what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to reference back to the dimensions again. The dimensions actually say that the eyes are about 2 inches up from the lip and there's 5 inches between them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out the center of the mouth, and I'm then going to measure 2 inches up. And then I'm also going to measure 2.5 inches on either side of that line. That way I know exactly where to place the edge of the eye. Yeah, so we're going to get to do that. Okay, so now we've got the marks on. I'm going to use my Dremel tool with the cutting disc bit, and I'm going to cut out the eyes. Now what you want to do is you have to take into account the fact that when you traced these eyes on, you went around the outside edge of the eye pieces. So obviously what you're going to want to do is cut inside and give yourself a little bit of space from the edge. That also makes it easier to just glue these parts on, because then you can actually get in from the inside using the hot glue gun and put a little bit around the edge from the inside. Yeah, so I get to that. Right, so you can see that I cut and I left sort of about 1 centimeter around the outside. You can actually leave a little bit less. Probably if you leave maybe sort of 3/4 centimeter space, that's a good amount. I might actually shave a little bit more off of this edge before I move on to the next eye, but it's personal preference. Just make sure that you can actually poke all of your LEDs, the LED array, all of the LEDs actually get through this hole. I mean the cardboard won't, the cardboard will be against the hole, but the LEDs all should be able to come through it. So just make sure that's able to do that, and then you're done with this eye, and move on to the next one. Okay, so now that we have the eye holes cut out and we have our LEDs done, what we're going to do is we're going to put the eyepieces on. What I use hot glue to put it on, but obviously you don't want to get any hot glue in places on the fabric, because it just sticks there and it's really easy to see. So what I do is I put a little bit on the inside, on the bottom edge, on 4 places on this, and then I just place it in the correct place, and that just helps to hold it in the right place. And then what I do is I go from the inside and hot glue it from the inside. I'm not really going to be able to show a video of me doing that because it's a bit fiddly on the inside, but that's generally the technique for it. So we'll come back after we've glued this on. Okay, so now that I've got the eyes glued on, I'm going to put the LEDs into it. Now this has got the tracing paper on top, but basically all I'm going to do is going to put a bit of glue around the outside edge and stick it against the shell on the inside, and that should hold it well enough. So we'll do that now, and then we'll have to figure out places for the battery clips and for the switches, but we'll go through that. Before we glue the switch into the helmet and sort out all of the wires, you're going to need to make something that can hold the battery in place, because the battery clips won't be able to do that. They'll just kind of move around with the rest of the wires. So what I do is I use some Velcro. Now I've got the 2 different sides stuck together, as you can see here. And basically what I do to make a little holder for it is I just place the battery across the part that I've stuck them together, and then I just fold a little bit across the top. Now what I do is I just take the scissors and I cut across the top here, just where it's folded over the battery. And I'll do exactly the same for the other side as well. and that should make just enough so that it can wrap around the battery and hold it in place. So I'm going to cut the other side off now. Right, and if I peel off all of this plastic to cover the sticky back, I can now put the battery inside here and the Velcro will hold it in place. And there you go, you've got a little holder for this, and it's easy to take off. You just peel it off, it's Velcro, and you can just hot glue the this little Velcro battery holder inside the helmet, and that way it's easy to just keep the batteries in there and it won't sort of move around inside. So once you need 2 of those if you're going to have 2 different color LEDs, but most people just have 1 color, so you just need 1. And then you can move on to gluing all the parts. Okay, so now that we got all the LEDs on the inside, you can see there's a lot of loose wires. Now this will get in your vision unless you do something about it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is to sort of push these out of the way. What I do is I try to hot glue them down onto the shell so that they're actually out of your vision, because you actually see through the mouth. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a bit of hot glue and see if I can attach it to the shell. Now you probably want to use quite a bit just to make sure you get a lot of contact with the shell. I'm just going to hold that there whilst it dries, but whilst that's drying I'll also explain what I'm going to do next. Now the battery holders made of Velcro that I showed you how to do just now, we're going to use those now. So what I've done is I've actually wrapped it around the battery. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to actually attach it to your battery clips, because this will help you figure out where your buttons can go. Now you're going to want to put the batteries together somewhere that's easy to access. So what I do is I actually glue them right in front, like right in the middle of the mouth. So make sure you're gluing down the side that doesn't peel up. So this is the side that peels up, so I'm going to put a bit of hot glue onto the bottom side. I'm just going to press it into place there, and I'm going to put the second one directly below that. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so the two Velcro battery holding things are in place. I want to make sure you have a little bit of separation just so that it's easy to undo. Okay, now the reason why I actually clip these in is so that I know exactly how much length you have left on the buttons. So with these in place I can run the wiring for the buttons up along the edge of the lips. And I can see where I can put them. Now it looks like the longest they'll go is right to the corner of the mouth. So I'm just going to glue them there. That should be pretty easy to access. When you've got it on, you're just going to have to stick your hand inside the neck hole and press the button. So I'm going to glue both of the buttons next to each other so that they're both easy to find. I'm just going to use a bit of hot glue, but yeah, I'm going to do that, and then you're done with all the electronics on the inside. We can move on to the next step. Okay, so now that we've got the eyes glued on, I just finished off the eyes by putting the X's on them. What I did is I just used some black electrical tape to do the crosses. That's obviously optional, or you can do any kind of design you want. But now that we're done with the eyes, we can move on to attaching the ears, and then move on with finishing the rest of this thing. So we'll do it. Okay, so now that you've got the eyes and all the lights installed, the next step is to put the ears on. So we're going to take the ears that we made in the previous part of the video, and we're going to position them on the head to tell us where to drill holes for these bolts. Now, the way we're going to know how, where to position it is by using the dimensions. If you follow that and then just sort of make sure you check it quite often to make sure it looks correct. When you're happy with it, you're going to need help for this, by the way. Have someone hold the ears exactly where you were happy with them being, and then ask your friend to take the chalk that we used for marking on the felt before and mark out directly in front of all the bolts so that you know exactly where to drill the holes later on. Once you've got the chalk marks, you can then take a drill, 4mm, because you use 4mm bolts, and drill the holes. And once you've got the holes in there, you can slot the bolts through them and screw a nut on them, and that'll keep the ears attached firmly to the shell. What you want to do though is you want to not attach the ears just yet, because it'll make installing the hard hat easier. So we're going to get to that now. Okay, so inside the DeadMau5 head you're going to need something to make it move with your head. So what I use is I use a hard hat. Obviously I've made some modifications to this, but basically we use this for the harness inside, and it's adjustable, which is really useful, because it means you can just adjust it to whoever's wearing it. As you can see, there's these vents that I've cut at the side, on both sides. The reason for this is the ears are actually removable, which means you have to bolt them in. Having these vents here just mean that when you've actually glued this helmet on the inside of DeadMau5 head, you can actually reach through these vents to bolt on the ears, and also unscrew the ears if you needed to take the ears off. And also you can see that I've cut it across the top here. Usually the hard hat comes with a small visor that sticks out the top. I just cut that off because it just makes it easier to install, and it makes it more sort of symmetrical, the front and the back. So yeah, and next I'll show you how to install it. Okay, so now that we've made the holes for the ears to be attached on, we've actually not attached the ears yet because it makes the next step easier. The next step is to put the hard hat on the inside. We do this first because if you put the mouth on, it would give you a little bit less space to move around, and so it just make attaching the hard hat more difficult. But anyways, so we're going to take the hard hat that we modified earlier on in the video, and we're going to hot glue this into the shell. Now you can see on the hard hat it has this sort of rounded top. This is going to make gluing it in a little bit difficult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those foam edges from those sheets, and I'm going to cut a small strip, 2 small strips out of it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hot glue those onto the hard hat directly. That should, 1, prop it up a little bit because you actually need a slight bit of padding, and 2, it'll also make it easier to glue in. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll show you me gluing in the hard hat.
But how am I going to leave the camera for?
I don't know. Wait, your camera has 2 screens, doesn't it? Pooh.
It's filming.
No, it's fine. Okay, so now I've glued these 2 foam strips onto the top of the helmet. We're going to glue it onto the inside of the shell. So what you want to obviously do is make sure that the front is facing the front. This is the harness bit. That's actually the main part. It just allows you to adjust the size so that whoever's wearing it can wear it comfortably. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put some hot glue along here and along here, and then just press it down and position it whilst it's drying quickly. The reason why we didn't put the ears in is because otherwise there'd be bolts poking out here, which might make it a little bit more complicated trying to glue this in properly. Now when you glue this in, you want to make sure you position this the hard hat is on the same level, is on the same plane as the edge of the lips. That way you make sure that you're actually looking sort of the right way out of the mouth. Yeah, so as long as this is on the same plane as the top of the mouth, then you should be fine. So I'm going to glue this in now. you'll probably want to use quite a lot of glue just to make sure there's quite a good contact between the foam and the surface of the shell. I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. Right. Now you're not going to have very much time with the hot glue because it dries quite quickly, but just going to go ahead and glue this down. Yep, I'm just making sure the very front of the helmet lines up with the middle of the mouth. And now I'm just positioning it to make sure that it is level with the top of the mouth, which it is. So now you can just let that set. If you want, you can strengthen it slightly by adding a little bit more hot glue afterwards. You can actually remove the harness in this one. You should be able to do that in all your other hard hats that you get as well. That will just make it easier to get to the bottom to add more glue if need be. And also when you're attaching the ears and you want to bolt the ears on, you should remove the harness part, because then it'll make it easier to get in there with like a small spanner and tighten them. So now that this is done, we can move on to the last step, which is adding the mouth on. So we'll do that now. Okay, so now that we have the hard hat on the inside, as you can see, we're going to move on to one of the last steps, which is adding the mouth in. So we did the mouth earlier on in the video, and we left a little bit of extra fabric on the corners along the edge. I'm just going to hot glue this in. Now this is the reason why when I cut out the mouth I left about 1 inch to a ½ inch extra. Okay, now that I've glued the mouth in, I'm just going to show you what I did to get round the problem with the hole. So what I'm going to do to get around the problem with holes. So you can see here there's a hole on the side, there's a similar one on the other side. What you're going to do to fix this is actually, I told you to leave a little bit of the fabric as excess. As you can see, I'm pulling it across here. So basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue onto the inside along the edge of the lip, and then I'm going to press, stretch this fabric across the hole, and that'll glue it across the hole. And yeah, and that'll bridge the gap, and it'll look like there's actually no hole there anyways. So that's how you fix that problem. Now that the mouth is done, the last step now is just to bolt on the ears. And now that I've attached the ears, you've finished. You've got a dead mouse head. If you liked that video and you want to see more tutorials on how to make your own props, replicas, and things like that, then head over to my channel and subscribe. And if you really like prop replicas and you want to keep up to date with what I'm working on, then head over to my Facebook page and like it. The link should be in the description below.